The most important day of any fantasy league is the draft, and you have to be prepared, and there's no better way to be prepared than doing a mock draft, and that's what we're going to do in this episode, coming up next. Hello everyone, I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Gary Kurtzman, and we are the Fantasy Football Consultants. And Eric, this is going to be a fun show because, I mean, let's face it, mock drafts, any kind of draft is got to be not just the most important, but the most fun day of the whole NFL or fantasy football experience. And what we're going to do for the viewer is now we're going to switch out from the camera in the studio, and we're going to switch into the camera live in the Fantasy Football Mock Draft Room right now.
In this video, we're going to do a 10-team draft. We're going to have the second pick, and it's half PPR, and we're going to draft one quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a defense, and 5 backups. So it's going to be 14 rounds. Okay, Gary, second overall pick, and no surprise, Todd Gurley's off the board, so who are we going to go with?
Well, I think our list and everybody else's list would say we would go with Le'Veon Bell. I feel very comfortable with that.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to have a long wait now as we get a whole bunch of picks. Not too surprisingly, a lot of these guys are running backs and wide receivers.
Yeah.
So those are the only ones that we're taking.
So on the left, you can see who was drafted, and I don't see any real surprises in there, Eric.
And we see right on the top of the board, we've got A.J. Green somehow is still available.
I tell you, I don't get no respect at all.
Okay, so look, I think A.J. Green's the place to go. It's a little. We picked a running back in the first round. We can get a top wide receiver at the end of the second.
And not only that, but Gronk or Travis Kelce is highly likely to be ready with us at the turn.
We only got one other guy. We'll see if he goes with a tight end, Gary.
Yeah, and he didn't.
He didn't, and I love the Gronk pick at this point.
I think Gronk typically goes in the back half of round 2. To get him at the beginning of round 3 is a steal. I think we go with Gronk for sure.
I love the balance that this team has. We've got a running back, a wide receiver, and a tight end. And look at 2 other tight ends went off the board.
Yeah, including Zach Ertz, which is a bit of a surprise. We got a lot of receivers. You got a bit of a run on receivers here in the 4th round. Luckily, we've got a top one. And look who is still available, Demaryius Thomas. Boy, I think the choice is really between Demaryius Thomas and Alex Collins. But, Eric, I think with the makeup of our team, being as balanced as we are, I think our pick is Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, we're going to see a big uptick in talent at the QB situation in Denver with Case Keenum. I think Thomas is going to be poised for a big year.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going ahead and picking Thomas, and at the turn, Alex Collins is still available to us. Who else we got? Kenny Jake, Jarvis Landry. So
I have been preaching for a lot that you wait for quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But here we are in the 5th round, the beginning of the 5th round, and Russell Wilson is still available. What do you think?
Well, I had already put my cursor on Russell Wilson. I know it only says 18% of the experts agree, but let's face it. Look, you basically, he was a top QB in 2017. I don't think I need to say any more than that. The number 1 fantasy point getter was Russell Wilson. He's a steal in round 5.
The other owners.
Mother of God, what is the holdup?
So Russell Wilson is now off the board on our team. We have a makeup now of Russell Wilson, Le'Veon Bell, 2 wide receivers in A.J. Green and Demaryius Thomas, and the top tight end in the land, Rob Gronkowski. And look at this, Gary. We were trying to decide if we were going to go with Alex Collins, a ton of picks earlier. And he's still on the board.
Yeah, and that's surprising to me. Alex Collins is the kind of guy who should be gone, frankly, in round 5 to see him still available.
What about
end of round 6?
What about Corey Davis? I know you're big on Corey Davis. You see him as a potential number 1 receiver. Now, the good news is the last 2 times that the number 1 guy picked, if we play a little spine, he went both wide receivers. And I believe he went on a wide receiver in the turn of the second and the third round. So I think it's pretty safe that he's not going to pick a wide receiver here. I would say go with Alex Collins.
And look, most of the number one running backs are gone. And Alex Collins were the only ones left.
And see how the spine strategy worked really well. Since we knew that gentleman at the number one pick had already picked 3 wide receivers, we were able to wait on Corey Davis. And what did he do? He ended up picking Delaney Walker at tight end and a QB, Andrew Luck. So he didn't go with a wide receiver. So now we can actually grab Corey Davis and fill out our complete roster of the key positions: a quarterback, 2 running backs,
Absolutely.
3 wide receivers, and a tight end.
And Marcus Mariota is going to have a much better year with the new offensive coordinator from the Rams. Think about how well he did for the Rams last year. He does anything close to the Titans. Mariota and Davis are going to hook up a lot of times this year.
So what would you do now at this point, Gary? You've gotten the key positions right now of who will be our starters. All of them are players that are going to be key for us. I kind of look at maybe potential sleepers here. Do you want to take
Absolutely.
a pick at the running backs? Let's see who. I think
you feel like running backs for sure, Eric, because those are the sleepers that are going to disappear first. I'm surprised still. I know Ronald Jones II, he's trending. His ADP is trending down a little bit, but you can see there, look, ADP of 57, here and 45 in another. These guys all seem to have ADPs low. I don't know why they're smoking crack. But you can see clearly Ronald Jones is going off the board before any of the rest of these guys. And he's clearly the number one running back in Tampa.
Yeah, and Kerryon Johnson, we got 40% of the experts think that's the pick we should make.
It doesn't matter what you think.
Yeah, we don't care what the experts think.
Yeah.
We're going with Ronald Jones II.
And on third down, Ronald Jones is still going to be on the field. Kerryon Johnson will now.
Okay, so it comes right back to us for the next pick.
So now, again, we're showing running backs. We already have 1 running back on the bench, so I just look at the suggested players to consider. Is there a receiver? There are 2 receivers that I like a lot. It's Cooper Kupp, because Jared Goff loves the slot, and he got the 3rd most red zone looks of any receiver in the league last year, believe it or not. And then there's Jamison Crowder, who everybody is a trendy pick. Yeah, I got some information there, Jamison Crowder. Let's get rid of that. But, he's a trendy pick for a breakout year. I think you can't go wrong with either one of them. But I'll tell you, I like going wide receiver here to kind of round out our bench a bit.
And if you look on the left, as you see a position tracker, you can see that no defense and, of course, no kicker has been selected. You have to always have what I call the Jacksonville watch. When is the right time to pull the trigger on Jacksonville? I don't think it's this round yet, but if they're available in the next round, I would actually suggest that's the round that we have a lot of picks before it gets back to us.
Yeah, I go the high ceiling Jamison Crowder. I hope Cooper Kupp's available because, boy, I love his red zone looks. But Jamison Crowder is going to be the number 1 receiver on Washington.
Okay, so a ton of picks, and not surprising, if you're to scroll down, you'll see a lot of those picks are running backs and wide receivers.
What do you know? But Cooper Kupp was picked about 3 picks later, so not too surprising there.
Yeah, and you're starting to look at talent, a huge talent drop now. Jacksonville did go off the board because we can see a defense was actually selected. I would have gone Jacksonville in this particular position, but they're off the board. We're going to get a pick next. I'm a big believer in the Rams, but I think we can wait a little bit on that. Where would you go here?
I would go Isaiah Crowell, and I'll tell you why. Because Bilal Powell is just flat out not good. He is just flat out not good. And Matt Forte is now gone. Isaiah Crowell has the stranglehold on the 1st and 2nd down for the Jets. And I think he was a good enough pass catcher in Cleveland that I think he's going to be on the field in 3rd down too. Anytime you can get a 3-down back this late in the draft, I think you go for it.
Okay. So it's going to come right back to us just after a couple picks. And gone is Kenny Stills and Tariq Cohen.
Again, we have 2 running backs on our bench. We have 1 wide receiver. So if we want to go a bench slot, I think we'd still stick wide receiver, running back, maybe tilting slightly towards wide receiver. Eric, What do you think? Is there a great defense that's out there that we want to dive into a little bit earlier, or should we go for the bench spot?
This is a really tough call. I would. We've got 3 defenses that are still in that top tier. I'm going to take a bet that one of those defenses will be still available when it comes back to us, and I would grab our top wide receiver.
Well, the top wide receiver is going to be Sterling Shepard. He's not a top wide receiver for the Giants because, of course, that's Odell Beckham Jr., but he is their number 2, and the experts seem to agree with that. We also like the slot position for red zone looks, too, so that's another bonus for Shepard.
So the defensive weight worked out because only one defense was actually selected. Let's take a look at defenses and see which defenses are still out there.
So the defenses looking right here.
So
boy, great defenses, one and all. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these.
Well,
guys.
I think there was a mistake. I cannot believe. I think it was the Philadelphia Eagles which went ahead of the Rams. I think the Rams are going to be an excellent team. They've made great improvements on not only the defensive side with their secondary, but on the line. They're going to be ahead in a lot of games. I would go with the Los. Again, 64% of the experts say you should pick Minnesota.
It doesn't matter what you think.
We're going with the Rams.
Which the funny thing is the Rams have the better ADP, and I can see why, because they clearly on paper have the better roster. Definitely draft the Rams on that one.
So here's
Coming right back to us.
Here's a strategy that I would like. We're going to see a whole bunch of kickers go in the last round. I like, even though this is very early in the second to last round, I like to get ahead of it and lock down Stephen Gostkowski, who is the safest, highest floor kicker in the NFL.
You know, that is one strategy. The other strategy is take a flyer on somebody who may just be getting a stranglehold in the preseason on the number 1 running back slot for the Seattle Seahawks. You know, Rashaad Penny has not looked nearly as good as Chris Carson. And don't forget, Chris Carson was the guy who had all the hype last year of, holy cow, this guy's running away with the number 1 running back position before, of course, he got a season-ending injury.
There's a few flyers I have my eye on. Chris Carson would be one of them. There's a good chance that Chris Carson will be available. Stephen Gostkowski will not. So it's your call.
All right, let's go with the Stephen Gostkowski. I really think, honestly, you could go either way on this one. But Stephen Gostkowski is clearly the best kicker. Let's see if anybody takes my Chris Carson idea. So far, we're good. Oh, this gamble's looking even better.
Whole bunch of kickers. So let's flow to the.
Okay, let's drive correctly, Gary. Suggested players to consider. Oh,
There's Chris Carson.
This guy's the bomb over here.
So let's go ahead and select Chris Carson. That'll wrap up our draft. And
A+. Look at that. Fantastic, Eric. That was an exciting draft. And I love how you used the spying to make sure that we didn't pick a wide receiver too early and that we saw. Because if you pick second, or if you pick second to last, it's important to spy on what the guy before or after you does to make sure that, you know, you can steal around by knowing what positions he's likely to pick or what likely he's not to pick.
What would you say, if you can recall, what was our best pick of the draft? Your favorite?
I mean, honestly, you know, you're tempted to say the best guy by far, Le'Veon Bell, because I think he's the best player in the NFL. But the biggest steal, I'm still surprised Alex Collins was available that late.
Yeah.
I really am.
That was what I was going to say.
He's got an incredibly high ceiling.
So we're in agreement. So hope you enjoyed this mock draft. We're going to be doing plenty more of them. So continue to stay tuned on this channel. And the best way to stay tuned in the channel is subscribe and hit that bell icon. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like. And until the next video, we will see you next time.
See you next time.
You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.